Find death before death finds you. There was a spiritual teacher, philosopher in the early 20th century, Gurdjieff from the Russian area, who later moved to France and taught there. He had an interesting idea. He said people have a personality and essence, and that many people have a strongly developed personality and virtually no essence. It's rare for people to have more essence than personality. This is an interesting way of looking at it, and I'm now elaborating on it. He only mentioned this briefly and then dropped the matter. The essence lies in two dimensions of your identity. There is the form identity, you as form, with your physical form, name, knowledge, education, abilities, and your past. This all makes up who you are on the level of form, how you perceive yourself, and how others see you. There is a connection between how the world or other people see you and how you see yourself. When you are trapped exclusively in a form identity, how other people see you is of extreme importance because it contributes to how you see yourself. You might become self-conscious, meaning you're very aware of how you are being perceived and feel uneasy, observed and judged, wanting to appear in a certain way. There is a natural tendency in humans to emphasize their form identity to the world. It's a natural thing. You can't tell a child not to do it when they say, "Look, I can do this." You can't do what I can do, or "My dad has a bigger car than yours." You can't tell the child, "Don't do that." You are emphasizing your form identity, but you know that's what's happening. It's a natural tendency in humans to emphasize their form identity, whether it's possessions, I have more than you, body, if it looks better than yours, or is stronger than yours, or bigger than yours, or taller than yours, or abilities, I have an ability that you don't have. Children start with that, saying things like, "I can play the piano. What can you play?" Emphasizing form identity is natural. There is a point where this should come to a natural conclusion. In a more evolved humanity, the emphasis on form identity as a person reaches adulthood and is replaced by something more genuine and deeper. This is finding your essence identity, which is underneath your form identity and is the spiritual dimension. Finding the spiritual dimension in yourself means that who you think you are is no longer solely based on your form identity. You still have a form identity with certain abilities. You're good at this, not good at that, better than someone in one thing but not as good in another, all that remains. But it no longer gives you your sense of who you are. This can only happen when something else arises that is deeper than the form, and that's the presence. When the presence arises in you, it has no form and is not tangible. It pervades your entire being. Then suddenly you realize and feel that who you are essentially has nothing to do with what you possess, how your body looks, your abilities, what you can do or what you know. Knowledge is another aspect of form identity. I know more than you. So then comes the realization that who you essentially are is nothing to do with possessions, looks, physical or mental abilities, but comes from a much deeper place. That deeper place no longer operates through comparison. Your essence identity does not deepen because it's stronger than somebody else's essence identity. You don't compare yourself to others anymore to find out who you are. This is such a liberation from only knowing yourself as that particular form, because with that comes a lot of suffering. A lot of suffering comes when your identity is derived from your form. For example, if you have good looks and your identity is based mostly on that, you might feel superior and look down on others who are not good looking. You might even emphasize this by buying things that make you look even better, but as decades pass, you look in the mirror and something is slowly wrong. You notice that the mirror seems defective it no longer shows your external beauty, and then you need to pay for repair jobs. But even that is just postponing the suffering that inevitably comes when what your identity was based on begins to collapse. That's awful. Or it could be an ability. You are very good at something, but then something happens and you're not good at it anymore. Or somebody else suddenly comes who is so much better than you. One could give many examples. With knowledge, perhaps your mind doesn't retain the knowledge anymore, or it becomes redundant. Having an encyclopedic mind is no longer a great thing because the internet is always better, like Wikipedia. Sooner or later, if your identity is based on form, then you begin to suffer. It's vital to have both, but it's not easy because your form identity has its own momentum, and that's the ego. The ego is anything you identify with as yourself and becomes part of your
form identity is ego.
The ego is a formation, an energy field, an energy form in you that refuses to go. It wants to survive as this particular form, defend its form, and strengthen its form. So although there may be an evolutionary impulse of the universe at work in you which wants something else to arise, the ego may be trying not to let it arise. And so you get scared of stillness or inner peace. You can't sit still. You don't want to stop thinking because you think you're going to disappear if you stop thinking. And you want to continue to have opinions about who you are, the old opinions about who you are. There have been spiritual teachers, masters, and mystics throughout the ages who have realized form identity, essence identity. There is a whole stream of spirituality that is based on de-emphasizing your form identity. Saint Francis is part of that stream, not saying, look at me, I'm so good at this or that, but basically saying, I'm nobody in particular. That can go too far, where it becomes another form, so you have to be very careful when that happens. When you say, I am the most miserable sinner, that's not quite it, because that's another big form identity that can be even stronger than saying, I'm the most saintly person there's ever been. I'm the most miserable of sinners. So dreadful. But to de-emphasize form identity can be a wonderful thing. Once it requires enough presence so that you already can sense that, which is beyond, it starts with a little thing like in a discussion. You are able to drop your particular viewpoint because it makes no difference whether you're right or wrong anymore, and you just let it go and feel quite liberated. It makes no difference who is right, he or the other person or you, who cares? And suddenly you feel a peace that comes there when you don't need to be right anymore. That's because to be right is one way in which people want to emphasize the me, make the other person wrong. So that's one way. It can be very beneficial for some people who have been afflicted with some kind of suffering or disability, which may be physical disability or whatever it is that makes it difficult for them to develop a well-developed form identity. Let's say somebody who is physically disabled, they can either seek refuge in some other area and become focused on identifying with their mind or whatever. It can also happen that if there's one major thing that seems to interrupt the full development of your form identity, it can more quickly lead you to the realization of your essence identity. There have been philosophers in the past or spiritual teachers who had disabilities, and it's because of their physical disabilities they were able to let go of identification with their unsatisfying form. If the form of you is strongly unsatisfying, it can be an opening, an early opening into essence identity. The same thing happens when somebody loses all the things that they had identified with in their lives through some disaster that suddenly happens. Things are removed that you had considered to be an essential part of who you are, and life takes them away. And suddenly you're faced with that nothingness or emptiness. You don't know who you are anymore because life has taken away all those things that you identified with. And then it can happen, if you don't go into a contraction and quickly form another victim identity, that it opens up into the formless, the essence. That is the peace that passes all understanding, as it's called in the New Testament. Because how can a person who has lost everything suddenly feel so peaceful? It can happen. It doesn't happen always, perhaps only in a small percentage of cases where people lose everything, a potential. The potential is there. Whenever there's great loss in your life, the potential is there for the arising of your essence identity. And that is grace. You can call that grace the grace that is hiding on the other side of every disaster. It's hiding there. You just need to recognize it. But there's no need to wait for disaster to happen to you. And this is why we are here now, we don't want to wait for disaster, because that might be too late. It might not happen for a while. It will happen eventually. Disaster will come to all of you because, yes, because you're going to die, the body is going to die, old age will come, and then that'll be it. As somebody said, each one of us has already been diagnosed with a fatal illness leading to death. It's called life. On the surface level, of course, so therefore the ancient dictum of spirituality is find death before death finds you, because death is going to find you. It's just a question of time. Now, what does it mean, find death before death finds you? It means find that in you, which is beyond death. So the death that you find refers to the death of the ego, the egoic identity in you, which when you discover the essence identity,